In the fight to keep part of our heritage, this is one of the most important parts of our heritage in all Australia. And I think it's really scandalous that there's consideration of wasting and destroying this part of our history. The Female Factory is really probably one of the most important parts of Australia's history. And therefore I think that it's absolutely important that all Australians fight to keep this area. And so we want to use the union movement, the heritage movement, the National Trust and all other fighters for the environment to make sure that this is one of the oldest parts of Australia of convict women's settlement, where women were exploited, where convicts were exploited. I think it's very, very important that we Australians all come together to save this important area.
My name's Mick Tubbs. I'm the President of the CFMEU Retired Members. I'm here to assist, as our group is, the Parramatta Female Action Group to preserve these wonderful buildings out here. I'm asking that you sign the petitions which are circulating, you contact your local member, let them know you want this important foundation stone of the nation of Australia saved for our future generations. And finally, get involved. You can come along to the Parramatta Female Action Group meetings and that's what we would like to see you do. This should be saved for all of Australia. Thank you.
President of the Parramatta Female Factory Action Group, and I have with me some participants of the Female Factory Action Group who are here to come around on this tour with you today. We're standing in the general yard now, and if you think of the factory as also a place of business, the early colony, the sheep, the wool, because they were manufacturing wool and turning it into the textiles, turning it into cloth from linsey woolsey wool and the flax as well. This was the yard that this all started to happen, business occurred. Directly behind me is a building that was really important. First of all, when you look at the corner, you will see a two-storey aspect which belonged to the matrons, and in terms of the matrons, probably the best known is Anne Gordon. One of the key points about her was she was one of the instigations of the first identified female right in Australia that occurred in relation to work. That happened in 1827. Over 100 women went through the town, and we don't hear about that in our history books. They broke down the gates, they were going through this yard, they moved down there and they broke through the gates, they went through the town. If you're wondering how serious this was, the orders were for the 40, there are at least 40 soldiers reported chasing these women, and they were told if they can't quell them, they're to kill them. The hospital itself was used both by women within the colony and for the women within the factory itself.
Can you imagine how many of our ancestors were born here? Because this was the place for childbirth for the women of the colony. So many of the convict women came here and gave birth. And also another aspect to that would be that if anyone died in childbirth and the child survived, they would bring the children here. And the women almost became the milch cows of the colony because they wet nursed so many of the children. They did try to look after the women, and they had midwives like Mrs. Mumford coming in to assist. I just love these stones because this is a men's story here too. The Watkins and Peyton were the builders, and they had convict stone cutters working for them, quarrying the stone from Macquarie's quarry on the other side of the road. And each of these stones has a story. So if you were a convict stone cutter and the overseer said, well, what did you do today? And you would say, well, you know me. I signed mine with a cross. I made this one and this one. Or I put big dents in mine. I made that one and that one. Or I make all horizontal pick marks. This one is mine. And so each one of these has a story of its own. So there are delicious layers of stories at the factory.
We stand in the dining room of the second class women. The women were here, but so were their children. It was a children's story as well. The place is called a factory because there were workrooms where spinning and weaving occurred. Over to our left here, you're looking at where the footprint is of the first class workrooms. Then behind us, what you will see is where the second class workrooms were. As we scan around, you'll be seeing a bell and a clock. What you see there is the original workings of the clock with a new face and the original bell from the factory itself. When you view the yard itself is looking at being the second class yard where there was single solitary cells, and you're seeing the 1818 wall. Both Babette and Judith agree with the aspect that we really need that custodianship. And there is hope, isn't there?
Well, I hope so. The silver lining on the cloud behind us. We hope that's important for better things to come for this place, which is so important to all Australians.
And telling those stories is really critical, and they're within the families of the people of Australia. And Babette is certainly one of those descendants who can tell some of those stories. So we might go around with Babette around to the third class sleeping quarters, which, if you keep in your mind, was going to be a computer data room.
When I first came here, I was following in the footsteps of my ancestor, Susanna Watson. But as a historian, I think more broadly, and it's a real tragedy that the New South Wales Female Factory building and other buildings like the Female Orphan School were not part of the recent World Heritage listing. There were penal colonies on the continent of Australia for 80 years. That makes the convict foundations very important to our history, and we can't afford to miss out a section as we have done. We've missed the women convicts who came to New South Wales. Only the ones sent to Tasmania and their buildings have been listed. and that's a very, very tragic omission which we must now remedy.
This is original stone, here and over here.
Okay, what have we got here?
This is a sad reflection on the custodianship. What we have here are original convict stones, as you can see from some of the marks, and it's from aspects of the building. We're losing the story as we speak, and it's something that is really of great concern. You've got people like Judith who are taking people through the factory, and it is disappearing.
It's just stark evidence of neglect. It's the wasting of our history.
Our story's getting lost again. What you're looking at here is the 1830s Governor Gibbs
Yeah, is that
solitary cells courtyard. So it's an 1830s wall. It's appalling. It is. The shape you see is like many aspects of the factory. There are so many questions. There's a lot of research still to be done. Some suggest it's a washroom. Some suggest that it's for a wood heap. What we can say is that it is part of the story, and there are so many stories we still need to find out.